Well, welcome back and happy Valentine's Day.
It is Valentine's Day.
Hey, sweetheart. You are my sweetheart.
I could have done without that.
On this Valentine's Day, I'm here with Steve Autrey.
And I'm not going to say, I think I'm just going to be quiet.
This is my show today, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
I welcome you back. It's fun to always pick at Steve a little bit.
Not only is it Valentine's Day.
Oh, it is Ash Wednesday. And hopefully as you see this, you've already come to Huntersville United Methodist Church between 7:30 and 8:30 to get Ash AM, or from 11:30 to about 12:30, or tonight at 6:30 we'll have our Ash Wednesday imposition of ashes service. What you guys doing?
We are having our service at 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Yep. So 7 p.m. Come on out.
Well,
and of course Ash Wednesday is the beginning of Lent, 40 days of preparation to get to Easter, not including Sundays.
And what an appropriate segue for us to think today as we kind of continue in chapter 8. Really, I would say that this is the fulcrum of the Gospel of Mark, this particular passage we're getting ready to go today. You've heard me allude over the last number of weeks that by chapter 9, Jesus is heading to Jerusalem. It'll be the last week of Jesus' life in Mark's Gospel. He records so much of that.
And we've also been dealing with who recognizes Jesus, and it's so far the ones who've clearly identified Jesus as the Son of God, as the Messiah, have been not the good and proper Jewish people. It's been the demons, and it's been the Gentile outsiders.
So today, Jesus takes his disciples on a field trip. There's really no other way to put it. Jesus takes his disciples in probably a 3 or 4 day journey up to Caesarea Philippi, which would have been in the northeastern part of Israel. It would have been kind of north and east of Nazareth or Capernaum where they were. And Caesarea Philippi obviously was built and named after the Caesar, Philip. It was an area that its prominent feature was the Temple of Pan. This crazy area where there's a cliff, there's a waterfall. There were pagan practices that were prevalent there, in which they dropped their infants, their children, child and human sacrifices into this pool below.
Well, it was a grotto, right? And it's actually the headwaters of the River Jordan.
Headwaters. Yeah.
And so you can kind of think through why ancient people would have thought that place had some significance, because water certainly represents life wherever you are, but especially in the Middle East. And so the water that came up out of that grotto that formed the headwaters of the River Jordan were very important to the cultures way before even Judaism. And so there were cultic practices there that predated the Greeks and the Romans. And again, there were instances of child sacrifice among some of those groups, and interestingly enough, the area there was thought to be a gateway into the underworld.
And so here we have Jesus on the way to Caesarea Philippi, and he asks his disciples, "So who do people say that I am?" Again, we've been over this in the last number of weeks. This is really the theme of Mark's Gospel. Who is this man?
And it's a question we all have to answer at some point.
It is the question. I mean, we can say it is the question of humanity, of lifetime, of the universe. Who is this man? Is he really who we think he is? And so, the response. Some of them say, well, some people say you're John the Baptist, other Elijahs, or just one of the prophets. And then Peter
but then he comes back and says, but who do you say I am?
Who do you say I am? And Peter says, well, you're the Messiah. Now, if you ever gotten the right response, but really didn't know what you're talking about, you might have gotten the right word almost by accident. That's what happened to Peter. Peter has some sense in which Jesus is the anointed one of God, that he is this Messiah, but Peter really has no clue as to what that really means. Jesus, tells Peter, you got the right answer, but don't talk about this yet. We've talked about in previous podcasts this thread that comes together over time about the nature of this Messiah, kind of a military, political ruler, and then it morphs into this idea that he's also going to be a religious leader. And I think that's exactly what Peter anticipated. Peter
Right.
wanted that strength. He wanted that military might. He wanted to be a part of this great revolution that's going to take place. And that's not who Jesus was.
Well, and so you see right after this in 31, Jesus has to correct that notion of a superstar Messiah or of a militant Messiah.
This is the first time that Jesus makes this prediction that he's going to die. And he begins to tell them, I'm going to go to Jerusalem. They're going to arrest me, hurt me, kill me.
Just read that for everyone. So this is Mark 8:31. Then he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are still setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things."
Now, juxtapose this with, at one point in another gospel, he looks at Peter and says, on this confession, I'll build my church.
And particularly in Matthew.
So it's really, I think, a strange thing for us to think about Jesus calling Peter Satan. And he got the answer right. He said, "You're the Messiah." But his understanding of what it meant for Jesus to be the Messiah was inadequate and wrong. And so when Jesus says, "I'm going to go die," Peter, it does not compute.
No, and then he goes on from there to talk about the cost of discipleship. And so many times we don't think about, I think especially in American Christianity, it's, well, you come to Jesus and you get to go to heaven and it's all sunshine and rainbows. And Jesus, that's not the picture Jesus paints. He's like, if you want to follow me, you're going to have to lose your life. You're going to have to say goodbye to the things you may cherish deeply. And you're going to have to become a whole new person, basically. And you have to take up your own cross and follow me.
I think it is difficult for any of us to really, if put ourselves in Peter's and the other disciples' shoes, to have a reference point for what Jesus is saying. They would have had no reference point. Jesus, what do you mean you're going to die? That can't happen. That's
we've
not who you
had
are.
a couple of thousand years to get used to the idea. They'd had 800 years or so of messianic hope, or at least 500 years of messianic hope that this Messiah would fix all their problems in the here and now.
Mm-hmm.
And so to change how you think about something is so hard. But yet that's what Jesus is asking them to do.
And not only is he asking them to change their view and understand something that I'm not sure that we still understand, why is it that Jesus had to die, but that he's also asking them to lay down every aspect of their lives and to subjugate what they want to be, who they are, to this mission, to this idea that Jesus is Lord over everything, and that the pursuit of money, the pursuit of power, the pursuit of happiness, and as we might understand that, really is antithetical to what it means to follow Jesus.
Yeah, it's a sobering moment in the Gospel of Mark where they don't quite get it, but they begin to. He's pushing them to think in terms of sacrifice, in terms of a greater and higher love, and it takes some getting used to.
This really is the struggle, I think, and for me, and I think for a lot of people in the Christian day and age. We all want to love Jesus. I mean, the kind, the gracious, the healing, the Jesus who, is this kind and benevolent teacher. But there's this sense in which the demands are there, and we read them in chapter 8, and suddenly it's kind of sobering thought. Well, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to give up everything? Do I really want to not pursue the things that every other human being seems to be pursuing? And that's a hard, sobering message.
Yeah, he's given a picture of this is the kingdom I'm asking you to live into.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to wrap up for today. And again, hope that you take the opportunity to find whether at Huntersville or whether at Denver or perhaps even at another worshiping congregation, a place to observe Ash Wednesday. It is a time to do some deep thinking of your own. It's a time to look inwardly and to basically do an accounting. How am I doing? How am I in my faith? How am I? What am I getting right? What am I getting wrong? And to take this idea of a time of preparation to grow in your faith.
Yeah, when somebody looks you in the eye and as they're putting a smudge of ash on your forehead and says, from ashes you've come, to ashes you shall return, basically telling you you're going to die. It's kind of sobering.
But it's also the truth.
Yeah,
So
very true.
Pretty sure it's the truth.
Yeah.
And it should give us a chance to put our lives in a larger perspective. So to me, Lent is about meaning. It's about, again, accountability and taking the opportunity to do that kind of self-diagnostic and ask, how am I doing in my walk with Christ?
We appreciate your time. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.